Whether you're a mom who longs to talk to your kids about Jesus, but you just don't know where or how to start, or maybe you're a church leader or a volunteer who wants to teach the families within your church to take their faith personally, or maybe you're someone who wants to see the church flourish in these challenging times, the D6 conference has the tools for you. Coming to Orlando and Seattle in 2025 with over 50 breakout sessions and presentations from Christian thought leaders will give you a chance to walk away with fresh ideas, new perspectives, and a renewed passion for your ministry. At D6, we don't just talk about discipleship. We provide practical tools for you to turn these desires into actions. To register or learn more, follow the link in the description or visit d6conference.com. Welcome back to the D6 Family Ministry Podcast. We believe that discipleship should not be difficult, so we're here to help you connect the dots between church and home. Together, let's guide each generation, whether related to you or not, to stand confident in their faith. I'm your host, Ron Hunter, and with me as always is my co-host, Marianne Howard. Hello, Marianne.
Hello, Ron. Well, we are back and let's talk about research.
Okay.
Let's talk about research. Some people love research and some people hate research. And I would just love to know, where do you land between those two? Love or hate?
Oh, man. You know, I'm a nerd, so I do love research. What I find interesting is how many different angles people can study the same item. And let's face it, we do that here at D6. We bring you research after research, all studying the same concerns over passing on our faith from one generation to the next, and how much it matters and the importance of family or parents involved in people's lives and kids' lives. And I would just challenge the listeners, if you don't care for research, listen to the why behind it. Listen to the little ins and outs, because we don't have to do research to appreciate research. And I'm thankful for the people who do it, such as our three guests today. In fact, I want us to listen to this wonderful reminder of why our discipleship matters. Let's listen to this clip from the episode.
One of the images that I like to share is children regularly bump into us, and whatever we're filled up with is what splashes out. So if we're filled up with frustration and anger and impatience, that's what's going to spill out.
I just want to encourage our listeners, as we get ready to listen to this episode, ministry leaders and parents in particular, I wish there was an emoji that I could have, like the listen up, this is a big one, this is an important one, this is important. Get your pen, get your paper. There are some things in this interview that could revolutionize your ministry strategy this year. So let's give this a listen.
Today, our guests are Dr. Luz, Dr. Denise, and Miss Shelley Henning. Dr. Luz founded the International Entre Niños Ministry with her doctorate from Bethel Seminary. She is an influential Latino voice for children's and family ministry. Dr. Denise serves as professor and program director at Bethel Seminary in the Master of Arts in Children's, Youth, and Family Ministry, and is director of the Corey Center for Children's Ministry. And Ms. Shelley Henning earned her master's in Children's and Family Ministry and is a doctoral student at Bethel Seminary. She is the founder and director of Growth Rings. Ladies, it is so good to have you all here today.
Thank you.
There's a crowd around the table. We're just having a girls' day. This is so fun. Well, I love research. It's what I do for my day job. And I'm excited that you guys have recently done some research around Latino and Anglo children's ministry communities. What was that research and what was discovered in the research?
Yes, well, in January of 2023, we embarked on this, launched a survey to find out what was happening in the partnership between church and home in both Anglo families and in Latino families. It was written in both English and Spanish. You could take the survey as a ministry leader, as a parent or a faith influencer, or as both. We had just over 900 respondents. Amazing response. Yeah. And not only U.S. and Canada, but every continent was represented except for Antarctica.
Oh, well, that's pretty good odds.
Right.
Pretty
so
good
we
odds.
were very happy with that.
Yeah, that is awesome. So what were the questions formed around? What were you trying to research? What was your idea going into this?
We wanted to know how we could enhance partnership between church and home, because the three of us are absolutely committed to that in terms of child discipleship, next generation faith formation. And so there's a lot of conversation about this. For my whole career in higher education, there has been a lot of conversation about this. And we wanted to enter the fray and actually ask the parents and the ministry leaders, what is it you need? What are you looking for? What's missing? What are the challenges? And we were able to do that in wonderful ways. So we learned, surprise, surprise, that partnership between church and home is important.
Yes.
And both
It is
ministry
critical.
leaders and parents and faith influencers, we use that language to think of grandparents, guardians, adoptive parents, aunties and uncles, just people who influence the child outside of the church in more of the home setting. And they all agreed together that partnership was absolutely crucial. Yeah. But one of the interesting things that this research demonstrated was that adult discipleship is the key to child discipleship. You cannot give what you do not have. One of the images that I like to share is children regularly bump into us, and whatever we're filled up with is what splashes out. So if we're filled up with frustration and anger and impatience, that's what's going to spill out. But if adults are tending their own spiritual journey so that they are filled up with the fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, if they're filled up with the Word of God, then it is more likely that that is what will splash out throughout the day, over and over. That's what's going to splash on children. And it's that continual splashing of faith, day in, day out, that's going to make the difference in the life of a child, in the informal education that the home is so well schooled, designed to respond to.
Yeah.
Natural rhythms.
Natural rhythms.
Absolutely.
Yes.
What are the implications of these findings as far as like the church goes? What does that mean?
More than anything, this finding, we found that parents are looking for relationships, a relationship and learning in a community setting. So the church has the big challenge and encouragement to really build on that and help the families to build relationships with each other, but also build relationship with the families that they're serving. The need for authentic relationships is very strong throughout the book. The other highlight we can mention is the need for resources, but depending on the topics. For example, the resources for non-Latino families, the ministry leaders are looking for intentional faith formation conversations and prayer with the children and for the children. And the parents, the non-Latino parents, are looking for intentional faith conversations too, and which is really exciting to see. But they're also looking for family ministry opportunities that they can do together. And it's very similar for the Latino parents and ministry leaders. They're also looking for intentional faith conversations and that they can do at home, family devotions, and parent network for support is very big, especially in the Latino community, and it's very much a trait of the Latino community. We are naturally, and our culture really looks for relationships. We were talking, somebody had a question in our breakout last night. How can we connect the church that wants to do activities with the Latino families, invite them, but they don't come? And one key factor we can say is that start with relationship. Start building that relationship. You be intentional in reaching out.
Yeah.
I think for too long, people who go into children's and youth ministry go into those areas because they love children and they love youth. And they're really good with children and they're really good with youth. They may be a little intimidated by adults, just not as drawn to adults. But if we focus all of our discipleship efforts on only the children and the youth and don't connect with their parents, we are shooting ourselves in the foot. We are not going to see child discipleship move forward because we know there needs to be partnership between the two. Yeah. And the other thing that we learned and that we believe strongly is that the initiative for forming those relationships falls to the ministry leader. The ministry leader needs to be the one who takes initiative to get to know the parents, to build relationships with the parents, to go out of the church into their world and spend time with parents. And that's even more true with Latino leaders. The power differential is more keenly felt in the Latino culture. And so the Latino leader, ministry leader, has to be the one who takes the initiative towards the parents. So instead of spending all of our time focused on the children, we have to start thinking about how can we connect with the parents? How can we build relationships with the parents? How can we resource the parents?
Yeah, we're having a really interesting conversation. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Parenting teenagers has its challenges. One minute your teens are content, and the next they're having an emotional outburst. Connecting meaningfully with them can be challenging, to say the least. Let me tell you my number one, hands down, and I don't put superlatives on items that easy. The number one recommended resource to connect with your teens is our new 30 Days app called 30 Days Parents and Teens. It's designed to help you bridge those communication gaps and strengthen the relationship with your teenagers. All it takes is 10 minutes a day. My wife and I both did this with our kids, and we had pretty good relationships with them, but it made it even stronger. I've seen this app restore unreconcilable relationships with teenagers. It's going to bring back laughter. The 30 Days app will provide blessings, forgiveness, hope, and healing. Whether you feel disconnected from your teen or you simply want to grow closer to them, give the 30 Days app a try. It's available on the App Store or Google Play. Just search for it in the links below or search 30 Days Parents and Teens and give it a try.
And we're back with more conversation with my new friends. These ladies are talking about this research that they've done and the implications that that means for the church. You know, I do a lot of research, and always there is a space in the research that just stands out, especially when you're comparing two demographics of people. In this particular one, race. I'm curious, Dr. Luz, is there a difference that you saw that just stood out in the research between the Hispanic and Latino respondents versus those that are Anglo?
Yes, thank you. This is a very good question because it's not a surprise. Their answers were not surprising, knowing and understanding the Latino culture. But we asked the question, who do you go for help as a parent when you need help? And the non-Latinos responded that they go to their friends. That was the top one, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, they go to their friends. And the Latino families, they go to their pastor and the ministry leaders because they recognize, first of all, the Latino culture has a high respect of authority and high respect. They expect the ministry leaders to have the answers. So it's very tricky because, it's exciting to know that they will run to the church, but at the same time gives the big responsibility for the pastors and for the ministry leaders. And so it has very exciting news, and at the same time, it gives us a big job.
Yeah, well, at the same time, if I can push back in this conversation, while that's exciting that they go to those leaders, there's the non-Latino kids who are people who are going to their friends. Like, how can we correct that?
Right. Yeah, that's the other piece of that is a little concerning.
Yeah.
And saying, how do we build a bridge there to have parents feel confident and comfortable to come to the church for answers to those questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do a lot of research with organizations where we'll set a benchmark. We'll survey a group of people just to understand the lay of the land, what's happening right now, and then an organization or a group of people will try to move the needle. Right. So in your research, what needs to be moved? Like, what is the needle, or we would call it a key driver, and maybe that's research terminology. But what is going to be that key driver to really integrate the church and home, especially in light of this research?
That is just it. I don't want to take anybody's spot here, but building bridges is that spot. So building the relationship between a parent and a ministry leader in both contexts. So as a parent, understanding the demands of a ministry leader, and as a ministry leader, understanding the demands of a parent. And there can be some frustration in that relationship. So thinking about what bridges can we build between those two groups that are going to just build a really strong partnership that maybe isn't quite as strong right now as we would like it to be.
Yeah.
And it's not about just handing them a take-home paper and say, do this at home. Like, I think for too many years we thought that was the answer to parent engagement. Just follow up what we did at church and take this little paper home. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a
Right.
good
There's
thing.
a place for
There's
that.
a place
Sure.
for that.
Yeah.
But that's not enough. We actually need to be in relationship with them. And that's the whole spectrum of things, to knowing their names, knowing which children go with which adults, knowing something about their family that you can connect with, connecting with them outside of the church, going into their worlds. And it's a whole spectrum that is a slow drip. It takes a long time. There's no quick fix in this.
Yeah.
But I really think helping children's and ministry leaders, youth ministry leaders, student ministry leaders understand that, I don't know what the percentage is, but half their job is to connect with parents, not just do children's ministry on the weekends, but to actually be investing in the parents and then build relationships with the adult discipleship leaders in the church so that there's synergy and continuity between what's happening in adult discipleship and in children's discipleship and in student ministries. I mean, we know silos have to come down. So children's ministry leaders, youth ministry leaders can maybe take the lead in helping that happen as we truly move into family ministry.
Yeah, that's a great perspective, because I think now more than ever, we're hearing conversations about we have to partner church and home. And we as church leaders are not the primary discipler in a child's life, right? We need to be equipping our parents to do that at home. And so when our priorities are out of whack as a church leader in, oh, no, I have to spend this time with the students, which is important.
Absolutely.
And not spending that time. I love that you brought that up, Dr. Denise, is that like we have to be pouring into those parents to equip them to do that, right? Yeah, I love that.
And we see that it's a movement of God, God's movement, moving the different organizations, different ministries like D6, all focus in connecting home and church. And that is very encouraging for us that are studying this conversation. And a move of God means that people are open, parents are open, ministry leaders are open, because we see the needs coming. And we're hoping that 5 years from now, we will be able to have the same research with results from this year and even this work.
Yeah, and be able to see that needle moved of those
Yes,
bridges, right?
absolutely.
That they'll be talking about, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully, that's the
Yeah.
idea. So for a church leader who is listening, and they're, trying to self-analyze, like, how am I spending my time? Where are my priorities? What does this mean for them? Like, to hear this, how can they take a look at the ministry that they're doing and the time that they're spending and make sure they're spending it in the right way?
The first thing I think that as student ministry leaders, children's ministry leaders listening, I think this can sound overwhelming. You're adding more to my plate that I'm already, I'm a volunteer or I'm part-time and I don't have the resources to go around. This is a church-wide commitment. So having, like Denise mentioned, other adult discipleship leaders working together, pastors need to be fully on board with this. That this is in their purview as well, that child discipleship and the discipleship of students and youth is a responsibility of everyone. So looking back and saying, I think first, how are we all connected in this mission as we move forward? Yeah. And supporting one another in that, I think, is going to be key.
Yeah, let's talk about the parents' role, though, too. So, the one who's sitting there who is like, okay, like, how can they approach their, ministry leader to say, okay, I don't feel like this is taking place, or I do feel like it's taking place, or let me be a part of that, or I feel like I need to be better equipped, or, fill in the blank as to whatever scenario that they're in. But what does this mean for them? What needs to be on their radar?
I think one key element of our book, if I can speak about that, please, that every chapter has ideas of how the parents can implement what is being discovered, what are the areas they can pay attention, and some of that is for them to take initiative to connecting with ministry leaders. Yes. Also, another question that we have is how parents wants to connect with the church, and it's very exciting to see not only social media and there one of the needs, but also in person activities and small groups be able to connect face to face. So I think it has to be a work from the parents and a work from the ministry leaders.
Yeah. Yes. How about those kids that their parents don't go to church, though? That's a great question. I mean, where does that fall? In this? Anybody?
That's a great question.
Yes.
Well, we have to have surrogate parents threaded throughout the entire congregation who are looking out for the kids who come without parents, without Christian connection at home. I mean, we have wonderful examples in the church that I'm a part of. People who mentor in the schools, bring those little brothers, little sisters to church, who invest in, and they're the people who are standing on the stage when the Bible is given to the child. Oh, how beautiful is that, right? Yeah.
We use the term faith influencers throughout the book, as Denise mentioned. That also, I think, for these children includes the people in the congregation. So as a church, asking yourself, who are faith influencers in our congregation? Everybody is, actually, but identifying those people and equipping them as well to say, how are you serving these children whose parents aren't involved, who don't have a spiritual example in their life?
Yeah. I really love that you included that group of people in this research. Again, because I do research, when there's an audience that doesn't have a voice in what's happening, like to understand the full picture, it's missing, you know, you can't really see that, and I have 4 boys. And so I tell their babysitters and their adopted aunts and uncles, like, you have a part to play in my kids' discipleship. So you might be thinking you're come to, sit with them while I'm on a date with my husband or something like that. But truly, like,
I love that.
I need you to be backing us up and reinforcing and like, please do that. Help us in that. And honestly, if you were to ask my boys who has been some of the most influential people spiritually in their lives, it would be babysitters. It would be, our family that we have, And so I think that's beautiful and wonderful. I'm looking forward to hearing this research again in the future. Again, as this benchmark and seeing that needle moved. I think it's really critical. Ladies, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for what you're doing with the conference and the work that D6 is also part of. That we call it the third leg, right?
Space.
The third space.
Space.
Yeah.
It's important.
Thank
space.
you.
Absolutely.
Oh my, Ron. We talked off the air about this one, and I want to take this one back to our church staff that my husband is on staff at. She asked, Dr. Luz asked the question, and the question that she wants to answer is, who do you go to for help? This
Yeah.
is what they asked in their research of their audience of Latino parents and Anglo parents, like both, all ethnicities. Who do you go to for help? And
Yeah.
I am just stunned by that question in a really good way. What do you
Yes.
think about that?
Well, let's ask our listeners, when you need advice, where are you going? Are you Googling? Are you YouTubing? Are you TikToking? I mean, I have built a lot of woodworking projects from YouTube videos, and I don't have to go buy plans anymore, but I'm using one person's opinion on how to do it, which can be good or bad. I've gotten myself into some projects going, yeah, that wasn't so good. Here's some thoughts. And again, you mentioned it. We were talking off the air. If I were a church ministry staff, I would love to chew on 3 episodes, and I think I would binge them together with the staff. I would go back and pick up Arlene Pellicane, episode 451, when she asked, who are your kids going to? Is AI going to be the go-to? I would listen to this episode again with your staff, asking that same question. Where are we going to get our discipleship and what matters? And I would also listen to next week's episode, which you've not yet heard, which will be by Brad Ransom on creating healthy church systems. Those 3 together need to be in your crock pot, simmering, thinking about what kind of meal needs to be served up from your staff ministering to your people. That's where I would go with it.
If you have a staff retreat coming, those are 3 that I would have my staff listen to and then bring takeaways and begin to strategize for generational discipleship in your ministry in your church. These 3 episodes really can shape where you take your ministry this year. And so I am excited that Brad Ransom next week, he's coming with creating healthy church systems, and he really challenges some things in terms of the difference between health and growth in a church, and you are not going to want to miss it. Thank you so much for listening. To learn more, visit d6family.com. We look forward to seeing you next week.